Hello, everyone. My name is Tooways Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast tomorrow morning. If you're joining us live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is someone who climbed the corporate ladder, Shehnaaz Suleman, a BDO audit partner, director specializing in IFRS, technical advisory, financial services, and crypto. Shehnaaz, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
That's great to have you. Let's jump straight into questions. Maybe tell us your story. Where do you come from? And maybe outside of work, who is Shehnaaz Suleman?
My story is a strange story. I started off at the coast in Durban, and I was a very nerdy person. So I actually have props. I did mention I would show you. I have a book here that I plan on turning into an NFT. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's a non-fungible token. But what I found was I was actually quite the nerd in the sense that I used to literally do my own exams and mark them. That is how I passed my honors. Okay, I found this book. I studied really hard. I was very geeky, front of the class, all the highlighters, color pens. And then I joined one of the big four audit firms, and I spent time doing work in the public sector. And after a year, I decided to relocate to Johannesburg. And when I did, I fell into a team that was very academic. They operated behind the scenes, and what they specialized in was IFRS technical. And part of my role there was to attend meetings where people would gather around the room and they would look at papers of very complex financial instruments. Naturally, my first meeting, I never understood a word anyone was saying. They were talking about hypothetical derivatives and they were talking about all sorts of hedge accounting that went over my head. And all I did was nod and smile. I pretended I knew what is going on. And then I made it my life's purpose to never ever be that girl in the room that doesn't understand financial instruments. So I started to spend more time on it and I found I had a passion for it. And because I enjoyed it, people around me enjoyed it and found it fun. And then I had to make a decision. Do I stay in public sector work or do I switch over? And I did because I was enjoying financial instruments. Most of my exposure and clients I was put on was in the financial services sector. And then from Johannesburg, after all these years, I've recently relocated to Cape Town. So I'm still on the journey. I don't have it all figured out, but that is my story. And what do I do when I don't work? I now have the ocean that I love and I go and see every week. I also like food and I'm an awful cook. So I've decided to start practicing cooking. That's another thing I do. I love food and I like cheesy jokes. So if you speak to anyone in my team, you'll know that they usually get a cheesy joke once a week just to lighten the mood.
On schedule.
That's who I am.
No, that gives us definitely a good understanding. I looked a little bit at your LinkedIn profile, and you spent most of your time in a few audit firms. So that seems to be your niche. But I did see you had a bit of a stint outside of audit. And for those young professionals who are maybe on a similar path to you, talk to us about the decision to step out and what made you step back.
Yes, I was with the same team for 6 years and I was having the absolute time of my life because I'm passionate about what I do, which means I have a good time. And when you're having a good time, like any kid who plays outside, you lose track of time. And so before I knew it, 6 years had passed and I thought, gee whiz, I don't even know what's out there. And I thought, let me step out a bit and try my hand at getting my hands dirty because I'm usually, and any IFRS technical accountant, is the one telling the audit teams what to do, but we don't usually get our hands dirty. We just tell them that's the answer. It looks good on paper. Theoretically, it works. How you make it work in practice, not my problem, really. And so I decided, let me go and try and do the things I talk about. And I found that it's not for the faint-hearted. I spent some time at Discovery and I did a year end, and it was really cool. I learned so much. But then an opportunity came that I couldn't pass up. And I thought about it and I was like, actually, I wasn't really so much. I lost touch with the financial, I lost touch with the IFRS technical, actually, the debating, the principles, the accounting, which is what I love. And I was doing more like operational type of, managing journal entries, reporting packs, monthly reporting. And that wasn't really what I'm passionate about. And I found that if you're in a role and you're not having fun, then over time you start to lose your sparkle. And then you're not having a good time. And then you become this heavy person that comes to work every morning and you're like, let's get it over and done with. And that's not the person I want to be, or I don't know how to be that person really. So I decided to change things up. And I was very lucky that I fell in with a really fun crowd who didn't expect that I would conform or fit into the traditional accountant type personality, because I don't really, I think. And so I've been having a good time ever since. And I guess one of the lines I did say to my boss was, the day it stops being fun is the day I need to move on. And so far, so good, actually.
How very millennial of you, but don't worry, I understand. For the audience, if anyone's got any questions for Shehnaaz, please add them to the comments now. We'll deal with all the questions towards the end. So, like, moving on to my next question. So, IFRS technical advisory seems very straitjacket. Seems like one end of the spectrum, and cryptocurrency seems like the other end of the spectrum. How do you marry the two?
Listen, I'm so glad that I don't have anyone else from my team here, because I come under attack. That's one thing I've had to do is, build a thick skin. I've been in training, presented IFRS training around all across Africa, more than 8 countries, and so many banks. And the one comment I keep getting told, why do accountants make this more complicated? It feels like accountants have gone mad. And this is from senior board members. Accountants have finally gone mad. And I feel like there is a bit of a disconnect between principles that we talk about in an academic perspective and actually how behaviorally people behave, how they do business, how they live, what they buy, commodities. It's all really interlinked if you look carefully. And so cryptocurrency, I've always been passionate about financial instruments, which means the cooler financial instruments are within the banks. And so at a banking level, I was doing research for an article about, what is the future of banking? And it started with an angle of, is money dirty? Apparently, one of the top things that's filthy in the world is physical cash. It's germ infested. But anyway, that led to, okay, but now where did money actually come from and start? And, it started with bartering way back when. And I traced the history. And as I started discussing it with literally anybody who would talk to me, standing at the grocery store in the line, I would talk to someone about money. I would pick random people in any meeting and say, what is your thoughts? And I started to gather a lot of really cool data, people's views, how they saw it. And then I was fortunate enough to work with someone you've interviewed previously, Nevlin Moodley, who lives, breathes, and eats and sleeps crypto. And one night, and this is an exclusive, I don't share these things usually, very late, he called me up and said, you have to do this urgently. And I said, what? And he said, you have to set up a Luno account and you have to buy this right now. And I listened to him and I bought some crypto and then I started to play with it. And it was fascinating how it moved. I'm very risk averse. So naturally, I pulled out of Bitcoin, too early. And to Nevland's credit, I made some money. Not nearly as much as everyone else did who stayed in. But after having played with it, it exposed me to a whole new world of what if people could just store their money digitally, things became streamlined. Could you end up in a scenario where we as citizen of a country are dealing directly with the Reserve Bank, similar to what's happening in China, where you get a digital wallet and the central bank or that Reserve Bank, all the transactions go through them. What will happen to the banks? Remember, I love financial instruments. I love the banks. I want them there. But maybe they need to pivot how they're doing business. I don't want them to go away. And so this thought process sparked an interest in cryptocurrency. Now, moving further down the line of the story, I found that I attend a lot of committees and working groups locally and globally where we debate how would this be treated from an accounting perspective? Because you're talking about something you can't see, touch, and feel. It's not like a car. It's very up in the air. And then as I started to think about it, I realized everyone around the room was looking at it very academically and theoretically. And a large chunk of people hadn't actually played with cryptocurrency. They hadn't bought it. They hadn't had to sell it. They didn't have to check the prices. And then I started to see this problem between how you account for something according to a framework that's globally recognized, and then the commercial and the business side of it, the practical aspect of why you're doing what you're doing. Maybe you want to structure something because of a tax perspective or a risk, or you're managing some other element. That disconnect became much greater. And then it sparked debate all around the world. And with blockchain technology, I mean, it was built to record legal documents, and now it's virtually capable of recording so much more. It started to really fascinate me. So that's really where I try to bridge the gap a little. I'm not successful at it. Lord knows it'll take us a few years before we get there. But I guess every step counts in that, because I've also spent time behind the scenes getting my hands dirty. I don't only look at IFRS as IFRS, the principles. The principles start to come to life. You now have to apply them everywhere you look. I don't know if anyone watched Bill Nye, the Science Guy. I reckon I'd be the accounting version. I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. It does. So now I get a lot of DMs from people looking for places to do articles. I know you specialize in technical advisory. So do you work with a lot of trainees still? And what are the opportunities for trainees at your firm?
That's a brilliant question. So I think the bigger issue behind that, before I get to that, is when you become a chartered accountant, for all those years, you're just trying to get through it and become a chartered accountant. And sometimes you don't give thought to the end game. Like, where do you really want to end up? What's your personality type? Do you want to be seeing the same people every day and sitting at a desk and doing reporting, and you like routine? And maybe that's for you and it feels safe and you like it? Or are you the adventurous type that wants to break all the boxes and do things differently and play with different technology and start to fuse your CA with different disciplines? There's so many different paths you can go down. So I think from a student's perspective, I would have liked if someone could told me not the detail of what to do on a day-to-day basis, but at least the type A, type B. Do you want to go into like a corporate environment? Do you want to do this? Like, give me a bit more color. And naturally, you don't know all the answers and you're not expected to. But even based on my story, you have to keep an eye open for things that you enjoy, and figure out how you're going to build it in to where you end up. So maybe you love cars and you become a CA, but then you go do, I think even some of the car manufacturing companies, got BMW Financial Services, they also take some of their trainees on. Maybe you find a position there because you're around things you love that inspire you. Having said that, I like books, clearly, and so I've gone down this path, and I'm finding that our team is structured very differently It's not, here's your technical accounting, here's your technology, here's your tax, here's your regulatory. We all sit under the same one-stop shop for financial services. And that means synergies flow. I'm always talking to someone about something, and the reg guys come in or the technology guys come in and they talk. So I learn. So I'm not just now a technical accountant. And I think that's where the future is going. You can't put yourself in a box. You have to think outside that. And you have to have that passion for learning and growing and doing things differently. So from that perspective and setting that scene, we do have trainees that rotate and do technical accounting for portions. So I get to work with them. And there are competencies as part of their training contract that actually get checked off by doing time with the technical team or together with. So my big word for the day is collaboration. We do a collab between the technical and the valuations, or I'm always encouraging the trainees to say, what do you think is something cool you'd like to write about? And one of them came to me and said, stablecoin. I think it's fascinating. Or smart contracts. How do you execute them on a blockchain? And I thought that's fascinating. What do you think is interesting about it? Where you almost pair up with them to write a piece and then they talk to the regulatory team and they get their input and they get all these different well-rounded inputs. So when they put a piece forward, it's got more than just one angle. People find it interesting. The trainee learns writing styles, how to put themselves out there. And then they also get a chance from a younger age to start building their personal brand and profiling themselves. And that helps them figure out what they love doing, what they're passionate about. So I think to answer your question, I do work with trainees. I do have to still help them with their LTSs and their little paperwork and all of that. I'm not so far removed from them, but I try to push them to think differently and not to feel like they're restricted or they have to wait for someone they think is smarter to come up with an idea. For me, ideas are golden. The cool ideas, the out there ideas, the silly ideas. In fact, the sillier the better, actually. I don't like ideas that are very like vanilla and bland. I prefer you come to me with something that's outrageous, and then we can work from there to get to a nice sweet spot. So that's why I do work with trainees.
Okay, not a good that gives a trainees or potential trainees a good idea. I've noticed also on your LinkedIn profile, you've done quite a bit of training and LinkedIn certifications. So just from an interest point of view, was it of value to you, and would you recommend that others invest the time or the money if there's a cost involved?
100%. So I did do the certifications. Part of it, there's two parts to the answer. Part of it was self-development. So I like always reading and working on things that's going to add value to the way I see the world. So I see the world through this frame, but it's my job to make sure that the lens is clear and that I'm putting more information in. I was going to wait till like an epic moment to release my four-step model for success, but I think now is a good time. So the first one I touched on was passion. So 4 P's. The first one was passion. You have to be passionate about what you do. And the second one is perspective. Life can get dreary very quickly and you can get gloom and doomy days if you don't maintain perspective. And the way in which I maintain perspective is to learn. So I did sign up for LinkedIn Premium Learning, and now and then clock 30 to 40 minutes per week on some aspect of a topic that interested me. That's not the only thing I do. So to answer your question on that, always, I have a team that's very competitive as well. So if I see they did pass, they got a badge on accounting, then I also need to get the badge. So some of it came from a competitive spirit. And some of it was just a quest for knowledge, a quest for just figuring out the world in your own way. And I do read. So I've got this book that's fabulous that I don't read books in chronological order. I keep 4 or 5 around at any point in time and I read them. So currently I'm reading this book as well, which means I randomly pick them up and read. And it's very, very important to read. I think spending the money to subscribe for Economist or Financial Times, buying the books or spending a bit money on LinkedIn. They teach you so many courses, and now some of them are free. So it's also giving yourself your best chance. And also the courses on leadership. What is your role? And a leader doesn't mean you have to be a partner. A leader starts with everyone from the bottom to the top. Um, it can be in the way you speak to people. And that's one of my P's, people, right? Because you have to treat people as best as you can and be respectful, but still be assertive and get your point across. So learning how to deal with people has been a challenge for me because I'm a bit of a tomboy. No one knows that. So that's our little secret. But I'm not the most, I'm not the best at dealing if someone's emotional, if they're having a hard day. I don't believe in platitudes or saying, there, it's going to be okay. So I was trying to learn how to deal with certain situations so that I could also be more supportive. I mean, we're working in an environment where we don't know the answer of how things are going to work. We don't know what the sweet spot is between remote working, seeing people. Different people have different triggers. And for me, it's important for me to understand myself first so that I can understand the people around me, so that I don't respond in the same manner if someone is flustered or having a bad day. I can respond from a space of calm because calm is a commodity right now. It's gold and it's not easily found and it has to be cultivated. So, whatever works for you. So, there was passion, there was perspective, there was people, and my last one was personality. Whatever it is that you end up doing, you need to bring your personality through. So when I got to the level I'm at now, and when I think of a partner, I always think of someone who's formal, very serious, wears a tie. In fact, I still do give a lot of my team a lot of flack if they don't have a tie, even on a team call. So ways for your next, I'm going to look to see if you have a tie. But I always think of that perception in my mind. But now I realized I have to be me as well. And if that means I must wear a red dress, then that's what's going to happen. But you need to not lose yourself as you go through your journey. You need to find yourself and keep adding to it so that you give yourself your best chance. And that's my 4-step model of the P model that I think is going to be helpful to people that are younger and are trying to figure out themselves. Don't lose yourself. You don't have to be, wearing a stiff suit and scared to speak. And who makes these rules anyway? Speak up, put your hand up, ask all your silly questions.
Be yourself. I like it. Even people that worry about, do I sound strange? I don't sound like everybody else.
Yeah.
I've got a weird accent. Be yourself. I think that's a brilliant one.
Yeah.
You've stolen a little bit of my thunder from my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
My younger self. You know what's funny is I asked this question to other people, and I reflected on their answers because I'm a slow processor. If you fight with me today, I'm going to probably take 4 business days before I reply. And so I like to reflect on things. And I think that's the best piece of advice I could give my younger self. Make use of the pause. Take time to reflect. Slow down. Things don't seem as gloomy when you do. And I'm not going to go on and preach about meditate, read, be kind, be good, drink water, although you should be staying hydrated. Um, I think that's my advice. Make use of the pause. Slow down.
That's good advice. That's good advice. Let's move over to some questions and see if there's any questions that have come through. Most of them are just excited to see that you're going to be on, so that's great. We've got a question from Jawad. He says, financial instruments, the one module guaranteed to put you to sleep. Did you enjoy it while you were studying, or is it more interesting in practice?
That's actually a good question. When I was in studying financial instruments, I thought it was the worst thing in the world. I thought it was awful, actually. It was so complicated. And for me, I just want to know there's one type, and this is how you treat it. And lo and behold, when I got to the real world, I found there's 1,000 different types. There's hundreds of different types. And I think financial instruments for me, when I struggled with it and when I studied because I couldn't see it. I couldn't touch it. It wasn't tangible. You can't like sell this book. I must now talk about a bond. I must talk about a swap. I couldn't conceptualize it. But the second I started to handle real queries from different clients, or someone comes to you and says, how do you deal with this? It started to come to life. And that's when the fire really got going. It was a little spark and then it got ignited. And so it definitely is more interesting in practice because all these complex terms and jargon start to come to life before your eyes. And so I try to pay it forward. So if I'm doing a training for IFRS, then I try to throw in as much entertainment as possible. So you get some little movie snips or you get some funny jokes that I put in, although my team has told me not to, just stick to the IFRS, leave the cheesy jokes for now. But 100%, when you see things come to life, it's like 3D, it blows up in your mind. It's brilliant.
Sounds like studying auditing versus doing auditing, or very similar. And are there any, I don't think there's any, let me just check if there's any other questions. It doesn't look like there's any other questions that have come through. Again, they just, for some reason, they're enjoying the show and really happy to see you. Are there any last few words from you or anything that we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
I have some questions for you, Uwais. So tell me,
Okay.
what sparked your interest into helping young people figure themselves out? Like, you know, everybody goes about their way and everybody's just trying to survive the bad days and smile at the good days. Why do you do what you do? Why? What's your why?
It's difficult. I suppose it's an interesting question. I was probably, when I started on LinkedIn, I was looking for people. I only kept seeing Australian people on my LinkedIn profile, and I was looking for people to follow or people to learn from. And then I got tired of it. I said, okay, I'm going to try something. I'm going to try and be what I can't find. And that's probably what it started. It just started with sharing my thoughts. I didn't ever think that I would, that this is what I was going to do. I sort of just fell into it. And the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it. And learning to make, being willing to fall on my face and say stupid things and make mistakes has helped me. So being willing to look like a fool has helped, and I've learned a lot. So yeah, I guess that's why I did it.
And my last
I'm
question.
supposed to be asking the questions here, but okay. Okay.
On to my next question. How do you, because obviously you enjoy what you do. So how do you maintain the balance between your work and in your family and your friends and carving out time for you? What are the things or tips or tricks that you use to keep that time in check, that work-life summer balance?
I suppose like planning is important, but also like this is for me is fun. It's thing if I like you said, if you stop enjoying it, you're gonna stop doing it. So I do this in my after hours, and I plan in my after hours, and I contact people in my after hours because it's not work. I'm enjoying like connecting people and getting people on my shows. This is not. It doesn't feel like this is something that I need to book time on a timesheet because it's work. It's not work. I'm enjoying it, and if I stop enjoying it, I'll stop it. So it gives me things that give me energy or things I continue to do. If it drains my energy, like people know I hate project management, it drains my energy. I'll do it, but I don't like it. It drains me. So I give energy to the things that give me energy. And then also communication. So I have to communicate with the wife. Over communicate with the wife. I'm doing my LinkedIn
Yes, I
live.
was about to ask
Don't-
if
don't come on the door.
if she knows you're doing all those things.
No, we have to, communication is very important. And also I do a little bit of stuff on the weekend. So as long as I make sure I take the family out and I do what I need to do, and I don't, because sometimes you can also you can run away with yourself when you get too interested. Like I'm only starting to learn a little bit about crypto, as you say, and that can make you run down like many rabbit holes. So that's a problem that
Yeah.
I'm currently working on.
Well, there you have it, folks. I'm a ways I smile. Happy wife, happy life.
Okay.
Also, I love what you said. Oh, I love what you said about energy. You give energy to the things that give you energy because recharging is quite important. And also, guys, there you have it. Ways I smile is a self-proclaimed nerd. Hashtag
I'm not going to
geeky.
disagree. I'm not gonna disagree. I'm not gonna disagree. It's just a reminder to everyone: the show is live on YouTube and will be available on the podcast tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you thought this video added value to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell so that you get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Shehnaaz, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ways. Till next time.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Two Ways to